Okay, time to get some paint down on this hull. We're using the Humbrol 33 that's supplied in the kit. I have two of these that came with my kit. We'll just open one at a time, I think. So we'll be painting all of the lower hull, the back area here, the bumpers around the edge, top edge of the hull, where the hull meets the deck. We'll also be painting in black some of the little details on here that are going to end up being silver later on, because it's just a good base colour for those metals. So we'll be doing all of those, and we're also going to paint everything else that needs to be black at the same time. So I've got them all on little clips. So wherever then there's not going to be paint, they're on a clip. Some of them are going to need a little bit of a touch up afterwards because, you know, like for example the capstan, the whole thing needs to be painted, and there's no way of really mounting it and painting it. I did look at doing it that way, but inevitably you're gonna, I don't know, I might be changing my mind live on camera. There you go, we'll have a go at painting it like that. Anyway, you can see everything's ready to go. I haven't primed any of this. So the first thing we need to do is just chuck a little bit of primer down on them, and then we can go straight to paint. Now we do already have primer down on the lower hull because we primed that in grey earlier on, so I can go straight to paint on this, or I can just dust over it a primer. But I think my gut feel is we're probably okay going straight to paint, because then we're going to seal it anyway, and that'll protect it from any scuffing or scratching. So let's get on with mixing the paint first. So this, like I say, is the paint that came in the kit. You never really know what consistency you're going to get when you open these. Sometimes it's really thick, sometimes it's really thin, but this is about average for a Humbrol Dynamic, which means we absolutely need to thin it, regardless of whether you're brush painting or putting it through an airbrush like I am. You do need to thin this paint. Now you can thin it with water, although ideally if you've got Humbrol acrylic thinners, that's the thinner that works the best on it. But yeah, if you haven't got those, then go with water. Other thinners you could use are ultimate thinners, which are a good all-rounder for acrylics. So I'm not doing any particular ratios, I'm just mixing it until it looks right, just using experience. If I give you ratios, then you might find that you have a problem when you do it, because you know your temperatures might be different and so on, and you know it does make a difference. Things like temperature, how you put it through your airbrush, how you lay it down with an ordinary brush. That's still too thick. Now it's quite warm here in the UK, so we're doing this fairly early in the morning, before the sun has made everything not viable for painting. Now while I'm mixing this, let's talk about airbrush setup. So I'm using a number 4 needle. If I was just doing the bottom of the hull only, I'd have gone with a number 5 and put a wide spray down, a couple of passes, we'd be done. But because we've got to get in at that back end where there's a lot of detail, and the other smaller parts, even though we're just doing a blanket covering, I've decided I'll just drop it down to a 4. Right, I think that's probably okay. So because I'm using my number 4 needle, that's always in my Evolution, so I'm using my Hadron Steinbeck Evolution, and my PSI is somewhere between 15 and 20, so it's about 17. You can never tell for sure because the dials aren't dead accurate, but that's my working pressure. So if you were to look at the pressure on the dial, it's just a fraction over 20, but once I've got the air coming through, then it will drop down to that sort of 17, which should be about right for this. Don't get overly het up on it, it's only small differences you're making. Okay, right, I think we are good to go. I'm just going to test my airbrushes working. Okay, I'm happy that we're atomising well, so I'm just going to blow the whole thing over and make sure there's no dust and particles that have settled. Thank you, compressor. Okay, we are good to go, so let's start. So I've got a little bit of fisheye going on, so I'm just going to show you what that is. It could be surface tension that's causing it, it could be that handling it we've got it greasy in some way, but across this area here the paint's sort of pooling, so we're going to let that dry, and then we'll take a view. We might want to give it a rub down and give it a second coat, so see if we can see that in the light. Can you see that in the light? It happens occasionally. Lots of different reasons I hear about why that's happening. It tends to happen more with acrylic paints than solvent-based paints. So don't know. It's likely that it's me handling it that's caused that problem. So we will let that dry and then take a view as to whether we need to rub it down or whether we can just go in and give it a second coat and level it. Right then, paint is dry on the hull. We've given it another coat over, and yeah, I'm happy that it's okay. We've got just to take this up to the next level and go a little bit beyond the paint instructions, remembering that this is a starter set and is aimed at being basic. This particular class of lifeboat is designed to be beached, so they can run it up onto the beach, and then the tractor or the sort of pulls it up onto a trailer, so it gets sort of moved along the beach a little bit. And as such, the keel here has like a metal strip, and you can see this. And there's a video of, it might be Scarborough Lifeboat actually, being dragged up on the beach and onto its trailer. Quite interesting to watch. And also these fins on either side have like a stainless steel strip, and it goes down each side, and it goes not all the way up, but it goes most of the way up this. So I'm going to have a go at painting it in with one of these AK markers. So we're going to use the aluminium, you know, aluminium stainless steel. All looks a bit the same, doesn't it? Also, we've got the exhaust flaps on the end, which are those two little circles you can see. They need to also be in the aluminium. So let's give it a go. You don't have to shake these pens. They're not like other paint pens I've got where you've got to shake them. You can just get straight into using them. I'm going to use the side of the nib, and hopefully there you go. You wouldn't know that wasn't stainless steel, would you? So we're going to do it in sections carefully. That's a lot easier than trying to do it with a brush, in fairness. So this is probably the part where you're most at risk of getting something on the hull, because the depth of the keel really comes down low. So you don't want to be pressing on with these pens, just wiping over the top. Now, maybe we have to go back and do a second coat, but I don't think we're going to have to. It helps that it's not going on black. That's going to make it a bit more vibrant. I'm going to take it up to there for now. We might have to extend that a little bit when we take the masking off. But that's worked really nicely, really quick. They're a great little solution for these things. Now let's do the little exhaust ends. That's one in. And that's the other in, so that looks quite good as well. And then we have, just going to do the end of that. And then we have this. Now it's the front edge and the top edge, but it also goes down the sides. Don't know what I'm going to do about that bit yet, but we can do the top edge here. There we go, and you can see it's nice and tidy. It's not making a mess at all. There we go. I mean, we could leave it like that, although that isn't accurate. It has a bit more of a margin. Inevitably, if I try and draw it, it won't be a straight line, so I'll have to have a think about that. But yeah, that's a nice easy win, and starts adding a little bit of detail, visual detail, and breaks the hull up a little bit. I'm choosing to paint the deck by brush, so I'm using two brushes. I've got a 5-0 one to get into the small places, and then we're using this number 2 angled flat brush to do most of the work in the middle here. It's just probably quicker than masking and using the airbrush, and I've had such a problem with masking on this model. I'm a bit fed up of it, so yeah, we've got a little bit of tidy up to do on the hull, but I want to get this done and drying. Now I'm using the number 27 that's suggested by the kit instructions, but I'm actually using enamel rather than acrylic because I find that easier to work with when I'm using a brush. But it means I don't have to mask anything. I can paint everything by hand, so nice and easy. And then when we seal it, any brushstroke weaknesses that we might have will go. I am going to give this 2 coats though, to give it a nice even coverage. But you can see I can put this down nice and quick with the enamel paint. Then we can let that dry. It's quite warm at the moment, and it's getting up to between 20-25 degrees most days, so it's fairly early in the morning, but I can leave this to dry all day. It doesn't really matter. And then we can do the touch-ups and then crack on with the detail painting. So I'm not going to be able to do much on my on my lifeboat today realistically, because we're really at just painting at this point, so everything's pretty much built up. So I am going to have to do this, put it away and do something else, which I think will be my tempo diorama today. There we go, that's first coat down. I can go in and do a second coat. It's already touch dry in the middle. That's another advantage of doing it by brush, because you put the paint down a little bit slower than you would do with an airbrush. You're able to come back and do second coat fairly quickly. So it's touch dry, and because I've got the paint thinned, I can put it down fairly quickly and thinly, and it's not going to disturb the layer below and sort of move everything about. If you've got your paint too thick or you've got too much thinner in it, you can start finding that your paint, the layer below the first coat, can sort of re-liquefy, and then you just got more wet paint rather than a second coat. I think what I just said makes sense. Right, so I'm just going to do a second coat in the interior of the cab area for now. Now we've still got the seats to paint, which again we're going to hand paint. We're going to hand paint them black. I could do those now, but I think I don't want to. I want to just let the grey deck dry. There we go. So I'm happy we've got that covered. So that might look a bit scrappy now, but when it's dried and sealed, it should look great. And then we can tackle the couple of issues we got from paint getting in when we... So it'll be a gentle sand back and touch up, either with a brush or an airbrush, I'll decide at the time. And then we're ready to seal it all, put the decals on, and then start building up from the deck. So we've been doing a bit of airbrushing, as you can see. We started with a white primer, acrylic primer, and then we've gone over this. This is the Humbrol 18 that's supplied with the kit. It's gone down really nicely through the airbrush. So we're ready to do some detail work and add decals onto that. The hull, I got a little bit of seepage go under the masking tape for the blue, so we've done a little bit of touch up, but I'm happy with that, and we're been working on a little bit of detail painting for this also. So my next thing is to seal all of this and then start detail painting the deck. We've got these seats to paint in, and I've got some thoughts on that. As you can see, for the display base, I've not gone with the blue that's recommended in the kit instructions. I think it's blue off the top of my head. I wanted to give it a more industrial look, so I've gone with this yellow. And because this is going to be fairly pristine, I'm going to give this a bit of a wash with a bit of rust on, but I'm not quite finished with it yet. I think where we've got these little angles on the top, I'm going to paint those black and give them an idea of them being sort of big, thick industrial rubber for mounting the lifeboat on. We've also done some of our little components as well, and put block painting down. So what we've done is the hull, and then I've done sort of the light colours, the oranges and what have you. So I've still got greys and blacks to paint,
But yeah, that's sort of where we're up to. So when it comes to the instructions, I'm really pretty much still at step 3 because I've not painted the seats yet. So if we go back to step 3, seal everything, then paint the seats, we can then say, right, we're moving on to step 4. So I've not put part A13, the steering wheel, in, for example, which on my reference pictures is black, not orange. So I've painted mine black. And they don't tell you to paint this in aluminium, this little grill, but it should be. So we've got that to do. We've already installed those, so we're sort of getting there. We've got the glass to install before we put that, but I'm thinking that I might want to install the railings before I install that. I have test fitted that, and it fits quite nicely, but it's a very tight fit. You got to push it all in, but you do get it in. Just need you don't actually need to glue it. The fit is that good. So we will be changing the sequence a little bit. I mean, we've already done step 7, for example. So yeah, pretty happy with the progress so far. Okay, I'm gonna go with rubber black for these little tops here. Let's just see how we get on. There is a slight angle, so it's not quite as difficult as it might look on camera. Have to be a little bit careful because the end of the nib is quite flexible. You can easily go over where the edge you want to be on. Well, that's not very straight, is it? Right, there we go. That's the first one done. So I think that's going to look alright, so I'm going to carry on and do the others. There are a lot of details upon the deck that have been simplified by the limitations of how many paints are included and the fact that it's a starter set. So when you go through the deck, there's things to consider, like the railings aren't actually pale grey. They should be a sort of pale aluminium type of colour, and then we've got the hinges on the little hatches are black. So just working your way through it. There's plenty of reference pictures available on the internet for the Shannon class, so get yourself some good pictures and then start working your way through it. There is some good ones of the Shannon class actually being built, and there you get some nice close-up shots of what it looks like under construction, so you can really work out those colours really well. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through the progress. I'm looking at a lot of reference pictures to get this as accurate as I can. Airfix have done a really good job of the details. Some of it's simplified. You know, it's a starter set, so you would expect that. But there's enough detail in here to pick stuff out, and then I'm adding little bits. So if we start with the cabin, I'm at the point now where I want to pretty much add the decals. I'm still doing a little bit of painting though at this moment in time. So where we are is we've painted the cabin in the orange Humbrol 18 that came with the kit, and then we've picked out the details in aluminium and flat black primarily. There's also a little
bit of signal red just in that little bit there, and then you can see we've got white there that still needs another coat, and there's white there that still needs another coat, and then the strap on it is actually black, and I still need to do the floor there in black. But you can see in the cabin area, for example, the only real detail on there was the bit that I've done silver, which has a decal go on, but there's actually a load of little controls and things around it, so I've just painted them on. You know, we're not. I could have done cut out some bits of white plastic card, and it probably would have looked neater. But we're just having a bit of fun with this, to be honest. All the handrails and things are not pale grey like the instructions suggest, but they're actually like a matte brushed aluminium, so I'm going with aluminium, and it's looking quite good. And once we get the decals on, which I'm going to do before we glue this into place, I have test fitted it. It's quite a tight fit, but it does go in. The key is making sure you've got all this built up square, and I used the deck as a jig while glue was setting, so that's helpful, I think. So yeah, I'm pretty happy that that's all coming together quite nicely. And then what we've done here, Airfix have you paint these black. If you look at the instructions, the black, although they don't necessarily particularly tell you to do that, but actually the lamps, so we've put some little silver on the front of them as well. Now I still want to add windscreen wipers to this, but we're going to do that after the cabin's installed. So yeah, okay, so far pretty happy with this as it is. We've got a little bit more to do on this. I'll put the steering wheel in, for example, before we glue it into place. But other things like the windshield and bits and pieces like that, and handrails will go on after, when we've finished handling it. So pretty happy with that. The deck has been detailed now as well. And again, all these bases are this sort of brushed aluminium colour, even though some of the stanchions coming out of them are black, not the aluminium. On the back here, we've got some hatches, and looking at photographs of them being built in the factory, the hinges are all black. So we've put them in black. Still got the seats to do. That's probably my next job on the hull. I'm going to put decals on next though. And yeah, everything else has gone to plan. I have largely used, when I say largely, all the detail so far has been done with these AK pens, which I'm just playing with. I've only got them fairly recently, and you know, they're great for doing these little jobs. They really are. And I think I just noticed there's a bit needed to touch in. I think I've pushed the pens to their limit. I wouldn't want to do details any smaller than what's on the deck with them, because there's not enough precision in the nib. The nib's flexible. But yeah, one thing that is incorrect on the paint instructions, let me show you. If you see on the deck instructions there, you can see between the black raised bumpers, it's grey, the same colour as the deck. That's actually incorrect. When I looked at pictures of it being built in the factory, actually it's one continuous bit of rubber that goes all the way around. There is these low points, these cutouts, because you've got tying off points, so it's to allow rope through, but it's actually still proud of the deck on the actual ship. So it's moulded ever so slightly wrong. It should be proud of the deck, but nowhere near as proud as the rest of it. So the cutouts are correct and in the correct place and the correct shape. It's just you want to paint them black for an authentic look, which I've done. So yeah, all good so far. We've test fitted all of these holes, so all the fit is good. So that's the last thing to do on here. Otherwise, yeah, the hull's going to come to life with the decals or fall apart with the decals. I'm not quite sure which one. And we've painted the stand, as you saw earlier, and that's waiting for weathering, but also decals. So that's why I'm sort of saying, right, I'm at the point of doing decals. I have done the life preservers. They are also orange, but I wanted it to be slightly contrasting to the orange of the... so again, I did those in one of these pens, you know. So for medium-sized parts, I think these are a good option. But the detail on it, they're not good for doing detail. So if you need detail, you're gonna want to keep doing whatever you do for detail, cocktail stick, fine brush, whatever that is. So yeah, it is looking good. Now I am working on this. This is very tricky. So far it's been done in the pens. Whether I can do the rest of it in pens, I'm not sure. I'm gonna try, just because it's so quick and easy. It's the same with these. We've spray painted the orange. These are sort of a combination of white and black. So we need to, they're sort of black at the bottom with white tips. So I think what we'll do is paint in the white, sort of down to there, and then understand what the level is of the black, and then mark them up. But there's no step or anything in to do that. You're going to have to do that by eye, so it'll be a case of getting some tape and marking them both off at the same level, so that you make sure they get to the same height and they look equal. That's the important thing there. So just to show, the white pen is the one that I'm finding is the least effective. All the others, the colour saturation is better, but the white pen really struggles. So you can see, I mean, white's always a bit of a nightmare colour, isn't it? But you can see how going on to white primer, that's fine. But where I've got a little bit of unevenness in the black, it's not covering it up very well at all. So the colour saturation in the white pen is not as good as it could be. So yeah, so there's some interesting detail painting that needs to be done, and I really need to have my magnifying glasses on to do this. So I'm going to carry on painting the white bits on here. Then next time you see me, we'll probably be doing decals, I would imagine. Right, I thought, as I'm working through the decals, that you might be interested to see how we get on with this really long decal. They can be quite challenging when they're this long. So what we've done is we've dipped it in water and we've left it on the side to soak. It's in the same orientation as the model, so mentally you can just pick it up and plock it on. Of course, you can't really do that. I have my softeners to hand ready to go. I don't pre-soften when I'm putting on Cartograph decals because they're so thin they can start to break up. So what we will do though is we're just going to brush down a little bit of water in the area that we're going to be putting the decal on, so that when we put it on, immediately it's floating. You'll be surprised how quickly they can dry out once you've got them off the decal paper. And we have a hard end. We've got this little cut slope which is in line with the end of the hull there. So that's where we're going to start. So we're just going to drag the decal so it's overhanging. And already I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm making this harder for myself doing it on camera, because if I wasn't doing it on camera I'd have already changed the position of the model. But anyway, let's get that. Why did I decide to film this? that's roughly in position. So let's get the decal on. And we're going to put more water down, keep it floating. Right, let's get this back end correct. So we don't want to push anything down until we've got this back end of the decal located. So I'm just lifting it. Takes, the more decal you've got in contact with the model, the more resistance you've got to moving it. There we go. So we've got additional now at this end. Just draw my wet brush under it. There we go. So as long as you keep it floated, i.e. you're keeping the substrate and the decal damp, you shouldn't have too much of a problem. So now we can, what we don't want is for that decal to move from the back area, because that back area is pretty good. And we've got to work quickly now. Get my finger wet because I'm touching it. So that's another important point. Make sure that you're keeping anything that's touching the decal wet, because you touch it with a dry finger, you can rip it. Once you've got much of the decal in the right place, the rest of it should start to sit roughly in the right place, which is where we are now, roughly in the right place. Well, we were. I'm just going to smooth that out. Now, there's a couple of areas where it's going over some details, but we'll get that to sit in a minute when we put some decal film on. We don't want it going up on the bumper. Right, then we come back to the back. Well, that looks okay. So I'm just moving that back a little bit. That should. And then what we can do now is just dry that off. So that's less likely now to want to drag. So I think we're in the right position up to about here. So we'll just dry that back end off. So we're just taking out that little bit of moisture, and we can press that bit down, and then we have a detail there that's causing that little lump. That's okay. Again, keeping my finger wet.
there we go, that is on. So we'll just get rid of the excess. Okay, right, so because this is flat, first thing I'm going to do is put some micro set over it. So I don't always use microsol on the top, and because I've not put a setting solution down, basically it's the same thing, just different strengths really. So on a flat surface you don't need the microsol. You need the microsol on a detailed surface, rivets and that sort of stuff, then yeah, absolutely. And we're going to have a little bit of trimming up to do of the decal, but that's not a problem. And then what we're going to do is, where we've got these two little bumps where we've got some detail, I'm going to put some microsol on there, some extra softener. So I don't need to do the whole decal, I just need to do where I've got some detail to flatten. There we go, that is how to put one great big large decal on. Yeah, happy with that I think. Well, my decals are on, I'm still bedding one or two of them down. To be honest, I think the hull decals are probably a little bit too advanced for a starter set. They are quite tricky to put down because they're so long. I mean, I've got them down, but I don't know that they're perfect. Like I say, I'm still settling them down over the details. But yeah, I mean, they're on the ones that simply go flat on the cab, okay, but big, long, thin decals like this are always a problem. But that's the only thing so far of the build I've said I would say is not starter set, but does look pretty awesome. Right then, painted in the black seats for the interior, and that's just drying. I've also given the deck a matte coat, which is also in the process of drying. Next thing I want to do is just give a single gloss coat to this, just to give it a little bit of a shine. I don't want it to be, you know, super shiny, but I don't want it satin. So I'm going to use Vallejo acrylic varnish for that, which is what I've used for the matte on here as well. I've spotted in one of the reference pictures that I've got that the little device here at the front has a little bar that goes through the top. So I'm going to put a little bit of plastic rod in, I think, just at the front to emulate that. And then this bit at the front bumper here needs to also be the same metal colour. So we will do that. So yeah, so I don't want to put any deck fittings on just yet until I've got this on. So I've got a little bit more painting to do internally. Then we'll give it a gloss coat before we do any washes or anything like that. And whilst all those clear coats are drying off, we can look at painting up the stanchions and bits and pieces that we're going to be fitting around the deck, ready for installation. So let's get on with that. Varnish next job. Right, gloss varnish time. It's just neat out of the bottle with a couple of dabs, brush loads of water just to thin it a little bit. It thins really well with water actually, so I might actually give it just a touch more. You want it to be thin when you're brushing it because you don't want to leave behind any brush marks. Okay, so we'll start here and go over the decals and the instruments and bits and pieces and seal all of those in. And
get down into all these little areas here. You don't need much, you just need to cover it, that's all. If you're not careful, you can flood the area and then that will build up and give you might even dry white. It's rare that it does that, but it can do. And trying carefully not to touch the aluminium with the brush, because we don't want that going gloss, though we can always go over it with matte if we need to. There we go. So that's the back end fairly swiftly done. Right, and then if we do this area here, because I'm not sure how much of this will be seen through the clear part that gets installed there. Now, just like acrylic paints, you can get surface tension, so if you do, just go over it with a brush. That's where it starts separating and pooling. Just go over it with a brush until it stops doing it. Well, I did manage to find my missing steering wheel, which seems to have shot off into the little drawer where I keep my airbrushing stuff. So I was airbrushing and it was on my little cloth that I use, I'll put on the table. So strange how these things can turn up, but now we've got it. Let's get it glued in so we don't lose it again. There we go, that looks good. Right, that's as far as we can go now with this, and we need to put the glazing in next job, but I just want the, though it's touch dry, I just want the gloss coat to dry a little bit more first, and then we can mess around with that. So, using one of these AK paint pens for, well, Mitsubishi Interior Green I've used actually. I thought it was a good green for doing the green screens for in the compartment. So when you look through, there'll be a little bit of interest, nothing major. So next thing I want to do is have a look at the stanchions that need to be painted silver. So we have quite a few of those in here, and we can just paint these up and start and getting them ready for when we're ready to install them. And then while that's drying, we can put the glass in and what have you. So feels like we're sort of nearly there, really. Not much left to do. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so. It's free, and that way you won't miss my first impressions, my tool reviews, my product reviews, and any of my builds, including wooden model kits as well as plastic. It's all free, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can hit my PayPal link in the text below. Every pound goes straight into the channel to keep the cameras rolling and to do more fun stuff for you to watch.